you've ever wondered if there's a shortcut to achieving your dream physique apart from drugs, usually my answer would be no. But recently I had a massive epiphany, and I believe there is an actual shortcut to achieving your dream physique. And so over the span of my fitness journey, I've experienced many injuries and setbacks that have caused me to stop training for periods of time. And I've started to wonder how much further along I would be in my training if I had just never experienced any of those setbacks. So when I was traveling this past summer, I picked up an injury in my lower back. And whenever I get injured, I like to kind of take a step back and reflect and see what caused the injury so that I can prevent it from happening again. And my big takeaways from this injury were that in the months leading up to it, I was rushing progress in the gym. I was slapping weight onto the bar too quickly, and as a result, I was training too intensely. While progressive overload is the primary driver of your physique development and is what you should always be focused on as a drug-free lifter, you can't get so caught up in the message of progressive overload and getting stronger that you end up adding weight to the bar too quickly and rushing your progress at the expense of keeping your form tight, and before your body has actually adapted to the weight you're using. This will tie into the strategy I'm going to share with you in a minute, but what you should always remember is that you don't need to progress in every single workout. What matters is that you are striving to do so, and hell, you might even be able to progress workout to workout, especially if you find yourself in the circumstance of being a beginner or someone who's actually brand new to proper drug-free fitness methods. But more often than not, it's going to be every other week, which is completely okay. So all of this led me to a very powerful strategy I'm going to share with you guys in a moment called cycling. And I'm not talking about cycling drugs, because you guys know Polarity Fitness is all about the drug-free path. I'm talking about cycling your training. And I believe cycling your training is the key to making long-term consistent gains. Before we get into the stages themselves, you guys need to know about a concept called conservatism, because it's really the foundational principle behind why cycling your training works so effectively. So conservatism is essentially the art of knowing when to hold back a little bit. It means leaving a little bit in the tank in order to create momentum in your workouts. And so as an example to illustrate this, picture that you're in a set of bench press where you're doing 225 and you're going for 6 reps. Let's say you're at that 5th rep and it's a toss-up. I don't know if I'm gonna get the 6th, it's 50-50, or maybe you know you're gonna get the 6th, but it's gonna be an insane grinder. It's always better to leave it at 5. And so what this does is it creates space, it creates momentum, it creates room for you to actually make progress and move forward. This is an art worth mastering in lifting if you want to create consistency in your workouts and make long-term progress. And this is where I disagree with a lot of the high-intensity training approaches. Sufficient intensity is an irreplaceable factor in making muscle growth and progressive overload a reality, but that's it. You can't have an intensity fixation, and this is so important because when you leave the gym, you should feel well worked and fatigued, but you shouldn't feel exhausted. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I know a lot of guys, they like to fail that last rep, they like to grind out that last rep, myself included. But there's a problem with it, man, and it's that you're just not leaving any room for forward progress. In order to turn the stimulation that you produce in the gym into rock hard muscle tissue, your body has to fully recover from your training. You have to work within your ability to recover for your next workout. And if you're constantly doing these grinders and failing sets, then you're basically ensuring that you're not going to be able to recover from the workout in time to get stronger for your next one. Your body can only adapt so quickly, and this way you can actually get around to growing and putting on muscle and strength instead of just struggling to recover from the workout itself and the insane fatigue that comes from pushing yourself balls to the wall and grinding out reps and possibly even failing. So this is the overarching strategy on the macro scale when it comes to cycling your training. It ensures that you make slow, steady, but sure progress. Many people want fast gains, and their efforts to get them end up leaving them behind the person who settles on progressing in the slow but sure way. So now let's get into the stages. So there's 3 different stages, and the first one is what I like to call the preparation and consolidation phase. And during this phase, the goal is to give yourself a running start and build momentum. So this phase should last roughly 3 weeks, and it should begin after taking roughly 7 to 10 days off of training completely. So what you want to do is start back again at roughly 10 to 15% lighter across all of your working sets on every single exercise. So you're basically doing an entire weight reset. It's going to help you consolidate your technique and your form. So you really want to focus on, in this stage, getting your technique dialed in again. Because when you get really deep into training cycles, it becomes really easy to just get caught up in slapping weight onto the bar and progressing really quickly, and you kind of let your form slide. So while you may not like the idea of taking a bunch of weight off of your sets, I didn't like this idea at first, but I'm doing it right now in my training with great success. You're getting your technique dialed in, you're getting a feel for the lifts, and you're getting yourself ready to make rapid progress in the next stages. So within these first 3 weeks, the goal is to slowly build yourself back up to roughly 95% of your previous working set poundages. Now during the next stage, the goal is to take 2 to 3 weeks to slowly inch your way back up to what you were doing before across all of your key exercises. By this point, you'll return to your previous working set poundages without feeling as though you were at your limit. The third stage is the growth stage, and this is the most important phase out of any training cycle where the majority of the muscle and strength gains are going to be made. And so there's no time limit for this stage because ideally you want it to last as long as possible. And as a general rule of thumb, the longer you stretch out the growth stage and the longer you can string together consecutive workouts where you're making progress in this stage, the better your gains will be. And so this growth stage is what you've been preparing for in the previous stages, and now is when you want to give it your all in every single workout and do everything in your power to extend this phase for as long as possible and literally milk it dry of muscle and strength gains. Generally speaking, the best gains you're ever going to make as a natural lifter will come from having the longest possible stretch of consecutive all-out workouts with the biggest weight increases. And this is what we're really aiming for in this growth stage. So obviously there's gonna come a point where the growth stage is gonna slow down considerably and the workouts are going to feel extremely heavy and demanding. And it's at this point that I like to deploy a few different tactics to extend the lifetime gains of my cycle. And what this usually comes down to is giving myself more recovery. So a couple things I like to do is, one, I will extend the recovery between my workouts. So maybe I'm training twice a week, Monday and Thursday. Maybe I'll switch to training 3 times every 2 weeks to give myself a little bit more recovery between workouts. Or maybe I'll drop some isolation exercises and put more focus into my core compound lifts. Generally speaking, if those core lifts are increasing, then you are putting on muscle. So if you can deploy a few of these different tactics to extend the lifetime gains, then you're going to make gains from an otherwise finished cycle. And obviously at this point, you're gonna wanna be giving much more attention to your sleep, your nutrition. Maybe you wanna add some calories because your body can really use it at this stage. But even if you deploy all the tactics available to you, there's gonna come a point where you have to accept that your cycle is finished and that you're gonna have to go through this process and reset things again. And the worst thing you can do, and what I've always made the mistake of doing, is pushing past this point. I've always pushed myself past this point and I always pay for it. You guys can also check out my strength plateau video that I made, which can also just be called how to extend the lifetime gains of a cycle, because I really go through all of the things in that video that you're going to need to apply in order to get the most out of your training cycles and how to break through plateaus and how to extend the gains from an otherwise finished routine. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, make sure to pick up my free 13-point drug-free muscle building checklist that will teach you the 13 fundamentals of drug-free physique building. So you will not want to miss out on that. I'll send it to you for free and we'll talk soon.